Lying to loved ones is something most of us are not used to doing, and it's something with which most of us are not at all comfortable. So, what is the option when you are caring for a person with dementia? I like the term compassionate deception. Let me provide an example. Martha lives in a memory care community. Her husband died in 2015, but Martha doesn't remember that. In her mind, he is still alive. So every evening, she refuses to go into the dining room to eat dinner, and she just absolutely insists on waiting until he gets home from work so they can go in together. Now, her insistence on eating dinner with her husband leaves the family and the staff with a couple of different options. They could try to keep her moored in reality by saying something like, "Oh, Martha, don't you remember, sweetheart? Ralph died of cancer 4 years ago. Oh, don't you remember?" Or they could say, "I think this is Ralph's bowling night. Tell you what, we'll set a plate aside and I'll keep an eye out for him. And when he gets home, we'll warm it up for him and send him back to your room." So, how do you think Martha would respond to these two different scenarios? Well, if someone told her that her husband was dead, it would be the first time she had heard that news. And how upsetting do you think that would be? How much stress do you think that might create for her for the rest of the night? If, on the other hand, she believes that her husband is off bowling, something that he did regularly and enjoyed while he was alive, how do you think she might respond? It's hard for me to see any benefit in putting a person through a horrible heartbreak every single evening at dinner time. So I enthusiastically support telling her that he's bowling and he won't be home until after she's gone to bed. Now, some of you might say, well, that's lying. And, I will concede it is not telling the truth. That's why I prefer the term compassionate deception. And I cannot see any harm at all in loosening the reins on reality if it helps a person with dementia-related disease feel safe, secure, and happy. People with Alzheimer's and other diseases can lose track of time and place. They may think it's 1951. They may be watching a movie and think that they are one of the characters and they are actually living the experience. A friend of mine who lived in a college town told me that she and her husband had had season tickets to the school's basketball team for decades. And then when her husband got to the point that it was just too difficult to take him to the games, she gave up the tickets and they started watching the games on TV. Well, it went fine until the end of one televised game when he stood up and said, "Okay, it's time to go home." And she said, "Well, we are home." And he was like, "No, the game is over. It's time to go home." And they went around and around and around about it. She kept telling him he was home. And he just got more and more entrenched in the belief that they were still at the basketball arena. So trying to orient him, she took him by the hand and led him from room to room, saying, "See, there is our kitchen table. And there is your bed. And here is your favorite chair." And when she opened up the garage door, all exasperated, and said, "And this is our car," he said, "Well, thank goodness, I thought we'd never find it. We can finally go home." And she stood there and watched as he walked around to the passenger side and opened the door to get in. And she thought, well, what the heck, I'll give it a try. So she grabbed her keys, backed out of the driveway, and drove around the block. And when she came back and opened the garage door, drove in, he was as happy as he could be. So let's just do a quick review. Dementia destroys brain cells and the connectors, and it is causing the brain to die. This is going to cause confusion and the loss of so many memories and abilities. They are going to say things that don't make sense to you. Their behavior will be perplexing at best, and it will often be confusing and frustrating. And as the disease progresses, it's going to get worse. This is not going to be an easy journey for them or for you, but if you can be aware of the situations that cause them to experience stress, and if you can try to avoid them, if you can accept that they are not intentionally trying to upset you, if you can release your need to be right, and if you can choose to cajole rather than argue, explain, or convince, and if you can accept that they did not get to choose which people, which abilities, or which memories got erased, or which ones will stick around for a little bit longer. It will help to keep their stress levels low and their behaviors a little more manageable if you can do these things and once in a while practice a little compassionate deception.